You're listening to the Adventurous Reinvention podcast. I'm Allison Boyle, aka She Dreams of Alpine, and this is the show that's dedicated to all the adventurous spirits out there who have either been transformed by the outdoors or are interested in what it looks like to step into a new, adventurous, and courageous kind of identity in their life. It doesn't matter what your background is in the outdoors, what age you're starting at, or where you grew up. If you're curious about the outdoors and using adventure as a way to reinvent yourself, you're in the right place. I'll be sharing all kinds of personal adventure stories, lessons I've learned from the mountains, teaching what I know about the outdoors and leadership, and interviewing some amazing adventurous women all along the way. I've been coaching women on becoming safe, confident, and self-sufficient backpackers and leaders of their own adventurous lives since 2018, and I know exactly what big fears and self-doubts can pop up along the way. I have so much to share with you, so let's dive in. All right. Hello, my friends, and welcome back to the Adventurous Reinvention podcast. You are listening to episode 74, and in today's episode, I thought it would be fun to share with you 3 core rules that I use in guiding me in living an adventurous life. Now, before we dive into today's episode, if you haven't yet joined our early bird waitlist for our upcoming enrollment of the Backpacking Badass program, I want to make sure that you know about this and that you go do it right now. You go to shedreamsofalpine.com//bird, BIRD, and that will take you to our early bird waitlist page. Now, for a little background, on November 17th, so from November 17th through 21st, we will be opening up our signature backpacking course for women with our literal best deals and bonuses that we offer all year long. So if you have been wanting to step into a more adventurous kind of life, to feel stronger, to feel braver, to feel like you don't have to wait around on other people to invite you along in order to go out and create transformative experiences for yourself in the outdoors, then you will want to be signed up for the waitlist for this event. Now, I know it might sound a little bit silly to sign up for a waitlist for an open enrollment, especially if you're already on my email list, but even if you are, make sure that you join that list because we do something special for Black Fridays and early birds. So if you're on our early bird waitlist, they get extra perks, like extra bonuses and extra things that are happening. I can't even describe to you all the goodies that we have in store for you. There are some secret surprises that are going to get announced literally only if you're on that list. So if you have been considering getting into backpacking, going out on more adventures in 2026, if you are craving to feel more of that aliveness in your life and you want to finally do this thing, this is your moment. This is the event to join us in, okay? So I want you to roll into the holiday season certain, absolutely certain, that next year is going to be your most adventurous one yet. And I am going to help you every single step of the way inside of that program. So again, join that list now at shedreamsofalpine.com/bird. All right, now let's dive into today's episode. So the inspiration around this episode, I have been thinking a lot lately about what it really means to live an adventurous life and what guides me day to day and month to month in making sure that I am living an adventurous life, that I'm directing my compass towards an adventurous life. And not just the kind of life where I'm occasionally going out on an adventure, maybe a couple times a year, but like the kind of adventurous life that really seeps into everything that I do. Because for me, like living an adventurous life and like almost having that as a self-concept, it isn't just about like getting to a top of an epic summit or something like hiking a certain number of miles or going on a certain number of trips a year. It's more about like really building out my self-concept of how I show up to life, how I show up to things when they don't go according to plan. What do I do when life throws me a curveball? Or if I decide to go after a big goal, something that scares me, something that stretches me, like how am I showing up in that way? And over the years, between backpacking trips, between solo backpacking trips, between guided trips that we do with clients, and even everyday life stuff, I have realized that there are 3 guiding principles that have really shaped the way that I live and shaped my self-concept. as an adventurous woman, and the way that I teach others to live adventurously too, and how to like embody that in their day-to-day lives. So that's what we're diving into today. My 3 rules for living an adventurous life on and off the trail. So the very first kind of principle rule is this concept of do it for the plot. So if you've never heard of the term do it for the plot, I remember that I first saw this like phrase, do it for the plot, on an Instagram post for something really random. And I was like, oh my gosh, I love this concept. I love this phrase. And I definitely had already been living my life like this, but it was just the perfect term for it. So if you're new to the concept of like do it for the plot, it's basically a reminder to stop waiting for perfect conditions or guaranteed wins and to step into the moments that make your life an interesting and meaningful story. So when you do it for the plot, you are not playing it safe all the time just because you have a little bit of mind drama about something. You are actually starting to create the kind of experiences that stretch you, that change you, and make you proud that you stepped into it. And when you do it for the plot, you are willing to take risks. You're trying new things and you're embracing the twists and turns because they make your journey richer. They make you more well-rounded, right? Doing it for the plot is about valuing the story that you will get out of the experience just as much or maybe even more than the outcome, right? It's like, okay, this could go all kinds of ways, but like the story is going to be so fun, so incredible. And I remember there's this quote, it's from Brianna Madia's book, Nowhere for Very Long, that I like saved and I have on my desktop. And it reminds me of this quote. And she said, in this quote, she says, all we truly end up being in this life are the stories we can tell, and I intend to tell good ones. And I remember reading that and I'm like, yes, that is what I want to do. I want to be able to tell good stories. Like I want my life to feel like this great story and all the things that I've done. So that is kind of what doing it for the plot means. It's like building this great story for your life, right? So let me give you a really simple example of this. So a few weeks ago, when I was hiking the West Highland Way in Scotland, you may have listened to my West Highland Way series on the podcast. If you haven't, it's not that many far episodes behind this, but you can go back and listen to that. So I was hiking the West Highland Way in Scotland with my friend Ashima, and I remember there was this point on the trail where, for some context, like there had been this big storm, they called it Storm Amy, that kind of wiped through Scotland. And so there was like this residual after storm stuff happening, like extra wind, extra rain, trees fallen over, like debris everywhere, things like that, right? So there was this point on this trail for the day that we were hiking, and we could either take the easier, more direct route to our destination. Now, this was like a 15-mile day that we had, or we could climb the classic way, the classic route, and go over what they called the Conic Hill. And this was a steeper trail. You had to go over this hill. I think it's like 1,000 feet of gain or something like that. It was definitely more exposed. It would be windier, but it definitely promised these views, and it promised a little drama because of the wind and the rain and a little bit of the unknown. And I remember my friend Ashima, she was a little bit nervous. She had been a little bit over reading, doom scrolling on some of the forums of like people talking about Storm Amy and all the things that could go wrong. And that's fine. I think it's fine to do a little bit of research, but at the same time, I remember turning to her in that moment. And I asked her at first, because, we're a team, we're a group. And I was like, do you have a preference of what we do? And she was like, I don't think so. And she was hesitating. I could tell that she was like leaning a little bit towards like going the easier route, but there was that little bit of a gap. And so I told her, I think we should do Conic Hill, because we're super prepared. We're very experienced. Even if the weather is bad, we're together. We have all the safety gear we need. Like really, it would just be maybe a little bit uncomfortable. Like there's some discomfort in the unknown, but we were definitely safe and prepared to take it on. I felt fully like 100% confident in that. And so I told her, I was like, Ashima, let's do it for the plot. And because she was just worried it might be like a little bit windy, and I was like, it might be windy, but like Scotland is drama, and this is like part of the story, and like what if it's like amazing, and what if it's like cooler than we expected, and this is like the original trail, and I just like, let's do it for the plot. And so we did. And I remember as soon as we made that choice, we were like giggling, laughing, like going straight towards the adventure. And this hill, this conic hill, became one of the highlights of my West Highland Way trip. And it was windy and it was wet because, it was hard to avoid, especially after that storm. But I felt so alive. Like, I loved the wind. I was like, oh my gosh, I made for this. Even Ashima, like, wind isn't her favorite thing, but she still loved it. It was challenging. And at the top of the hill, we got to look down on the Loch Lomond area, and the sky. I remember the most magical thing happened. The sky, it had been rainy all of our trip so far. And then the sky opened up and the sun came out, and it like lit us up, and it lit the lake up. And it was one of the best views that we had on the whole West Highland Way hike. And I had no regrets that we went for it. And neither did Ashima at the end of it. We were both like, yeah, that was like better than we imagined. And her brain had definitely just taken her to doomsday, and like doing it for the plot opened us up to, the possibility of it being amazing, right? So I love this concept of doing it for the plot, because when you live adventurously, you stop choosing what's easiest and you start choosing what makes a great story for your life, and develops your self-concept. And you start saying yes to the moments that may stretch you, that may put you out of your comfort zone. They may make you laugh nervously or make your heart pump a little bit faster. But they're so worth it. And just so that I'm crystal clear, like doing it for the plot, I hope with my story I've illustrated this, but doing for the plot doesn't mean being reckless. Like, Ashima and I were 150% prepared, skilled, had the gear for any kind of conditions we might have encountered. And we also don't have a big ego. So if we had gotten to a point where something felt unsafe, we could have just turned around, and, maybe it would have been longer, but it would have been fine. Like, I have no ego around maybe needing to make a safety call or decision or plan change, right? But I had no doubt that our journey in doing it for the plot in that moment was safe. So that's something you always want to consider too. But doing it for the plot did mean risking some comfort and like embracing some discomfort to really and truly feel alive, and to open ourselves up to a story we were uncertain of what it would be, and a little bit of magic like the sun opening up and all of that. So it's meant to help you be more curious about like what could happen if you trust yourself enough to say yes. And another quick way that this might come up for you is in those moments where, like, if you have a backpacking trip plan, for example, but it feels like everything in life against you, and your personal life is against you, like you have so much work to do, or you haven't gotten much sleep, or you're feeling a little bit nervous about your trip, and your brain is just like, shouldn't we just stay home? That will be easier. This is a moment where you can ask yourself, like, of course, first check in, make sure that moving forward on the adventure itself would still feel safe. Because there are some moments where it's like, okay, like weather dropped to below freezing and it's no longer safe for me to go out there in these conditions with what I have and the skills and the gear and all of that. So you want to have that self-trust and knowing like, okay, yeah, I still think it would be a safe adventure. This is more just mind drama that's coming up for me. Ask yourself then, what would be your answer if you were doing it for the plot and creating a life filled with moments of adventure and stories and memories you'll never forget, and just opening yourself up to the possibility that like this could develop you, could grow you, could be even more amazing than you ever imagined. So that is something I always come back to, especially when my brain is freaking out. I'll be like, let's do it for the plot, Allison. Like, we can work and stay at home and watch Netflix anytime, all the time that is available. And that is not what makes my life an amazing story. And it doesn't grow me, and it doesn't give me this like rich experience and feeling of aliveness. No, it's like going out on the adventure is what actually makes me feel alive and what grows me and what develops me. All right. And so this leads me into my next guiding principle. So first one is do it for the plot. And then principle number 2 for living an adventurous life is embracing the plot twists. So a great adventure almost always comes with a plot twist. And if you're embracing principle number 1, which is do it for the plot, then you also need to embrace principle number 2, which is leaning into the plot twist. Okay. So the second principle is all about what happens when things don't go according to your original plan. So we teach our clients in the Backpacking Badass program, which is our course for women to teach them how to become safe, confident, self-sufficient backpackers. We teach them to always go in prepared, to have a rock solid trip plan, to know their route ahead of time, to have a safety and communication plan, all of the things. Like go in prepared, feel confident, right? By the time they get through their backpacking trips, they have thought through everything from gear to mileage to backup routes. And this is what makes them prepared. This is the skill that teaches them how to have self-trust and their ability to handle whatever comes their way. And we teach our students to do this because we know that once you're out there living and leaning into the great adventure, into the great story, you will have plot twists. The weather will change. Maybe you're pacing slower than you expected. Somebody gets tired or altitude sick or even injured. Maybe a car breaks down. Maybe the terrain is more rugged than you anticipated. And your original plan might need to shift. And when that happens, I want to encourage you not to go into the dark place in your mind, that place of like, this shouldn't be happening, or I messed this up, or I knew I wasn't capable of this, or making it mean something negative about you. Instead, I want you to think, okay, here is my plot twist. Now I need to make a new plan. All right. So I'm going to give you some examples. So one example, my very first solo backpacking trip, I think I did a whole podcast episode on this, so you can find that too. But I did Mount Langley. And just to make the long story short, there was this pass that originally I was going to go over. And I did think that there could be a chance there was going to be snow on it ahead of time. But I wasn't sure. So I went on this trip. I was going to go over this pass to make my way towards Mount Langley. But when I got to the pass, there was snow on it. And I was solo. And in my opinion at the time, and where I was as a backpacker, I didn't want to take on that pass with snow. I didn't have the gear. I didn't have that much experience. It didn't feel safe. So I knew that I wasn't going to move forward if there was snow on the pass. But I was thinking to myself, okay, how can I embrace this? And what else could I do? So instead of being really down on myself and being like, oh, I shouldn't even have come out here, I was like, okay, what's the new plan? And so I pulled out my map and I found a connector trail. And I felt really confident in my navigation skills. And I came up with a quick new plan. There was another pass on the other side of this area that was more sun facing. And I was like, maybe if I can make it over there, I could try this pass instead. And it's in the sun, so maybe it will be dry. And so I went over there. And I made camp at the bottom of the pass. And then the next morning when I got to the pass, it was dry. And so I was able to continue forward on my trip. And it was so fun. The most fun that I had from that trip was the moment where I had to lean into the plot twist. I was like, okay, original plan is not how it's going down. We have to lean into I got to practice my skills. I got to practice my navigation skills. I got to lean into my self-trust. And there was just so much pride that I had from that moment of being I made a safety call and I made a plan change and I did it all on my own. And that is so badass. And I was just so proud of myself for doing that and being able to continue forward on my trip, even though that there was this challenge I encountered. So that was even more growth. I got even more growth from that plot twist than I would have if I had just had the plan go according to plan. Another example of this is we had a client trip for our Adventurous reinvention experience a couple years ago where we expected, so it was a new route or sort of new route. And so we had done part of it and there were parts of it that were a little bit unknown. especially water-wise, because it was a bit more southern on the trail. And so we were evaluating maps, and it was a little bit deep in the backcountry to like pre-scout. And we were like, great, this is going to be a good learning opportunity regardless. And we had backup plans. So our original plan was we were going to camp at this junction that looked like it had water at it. From all like satellite images that we saw, from maps, everything, we anticipated there to be water there. And when we got there in real life, there wasn't. So we had already scoped out a backup plan. So we were like, okay, clients, plot twist. We had already prepped them for this. We were like, our first plan A is to camp here, but if we can't camp here, we're going to camp here. So we had to lean into our plan B. And we were like, okay, so we're going to go hike up all the way to the lake. The only reason we weren't going to camp by the lake is it was just extra elevation gain, like 500 feet of elevation gain, some more miles. It was a little bit off the loop we were doing, but it was perfectly reasonable to add on to our day. So we were like, okay, so we are going to go up to this lake. And we went up into this lake, and it ended up like it was a bit of a trudge. It was the end of our day, so we were really tired, and it was a lot of work, and the pivot was, hard. And we still did it. And then we made it to this camp, and it ended up being like one of the best spots of the whole trip. And we took a long morning the next day, since we had to do like extra miles that day. We did a long morning and really enjoyed the lake. We had some really meaningful conversations from that campsite area. There was literally nobody else out there. We had this entire lake area to ourselves, which I have never really encountered out there in the Eastern Sierras. Like, you can find solitude, but in a lake like that, I would have expected so many more people, but we had it to ourselves, and it was something that I'll never forget. And I know so many of my clients who were on that trip, if they're listening to this, they were probably thinking the same thing. And I remember we had this joke where if a zombie apocalypse happened, this would become the place that we would meet. This tiny, quiet little fortress inside of the Eastern Sierra by this lake. We were like, this is the place that we're all coming back to, and we'll just make our home. And that was our little joke from the trip. And so the plot twist ended up being one of the highlights of the trip. And I have so many more examples like this, but I'm going to just leave it to those two just to keep this a little bit shorter. But the point is, when you release the need to control every single aspect of your adventures, you allow it to unfold in ways that you didn't even know could be possible. So here's the shift that I want you to make in your thinking around a plot twist when something doesn't go according to your original plan. I want you to realize that your first plan was never supposed to be your experience. This new plan, the one that you didn't expect, the plot twist that came up, that is your experience that you were meant to have. That is your growth opportunity. It's a potential new connection. It's a new lesson unlocked. It's a safety call made with confidence. It's a new strength that you've unlocked for yourself. It is a potential magical moment that you didn't even expect. And I personally never begrudge a plot twist anymore. What adventure will this plot twist will this adventure bring is what I'm trying to say, is often what I'm thinking. I'll be super excited about an adventure, and I'll also be excited about the plot twist that I don't even know about. I'll be okay, I have a backpacking trip coming up tomorrow that I'm leaving on, and I know there will be plot twists to our original plan, and it can make me a little bit nervous, a little ooh, I don't know what to expect, but also it's a little bit exciting. And who will I become in this plot twist? That moment on Mount Langley that I told you, I just that was the moment I realized how much I trusted myself in the backcountry on my own. I really solidified that self-concept for myself. Because every time I've leaned into a plot twist, instead of resisting it, I have personally walked away prouder, more capable, more alive, and sometimes with a memory or a story that I never would have had otherwise. Sometimes the plot twist is even better than my original plan could have ever been. So I love a plot twist, honestly. And at the end, I get to always celebrate like my adaptability and my capability in handling the plot twist. Like even if it's a plot twist that I would have preferred not to have, I always at the end of the day can celebrate my ability in handling it. And I grow so much from them. So I want you to hold space for that. Like imagine the kind of person that you become if you believe you can handle any plot twist that life or the mountains or the trail throws at you. Imagine the self-growth or the self-trust that grows there when you lean into that. That this is just like who you are now. You are a woman who can solve any problem and you literally always figure it out. Like that is just unshakable self-trust. It just allows you to do almost anything. And you're almost even excited by the idea of what a plot twist might lie ahead and what amazing surprises it will lead you to. That's what I love. I love a good plot twist. All right. And last but not least, don't be afraid to challenge yourself for your long-term growth. So the last principle is simple, but it can be harder to lean into because there is no instant gratification on this one. So I've spent too much of my life being like, living into the stories of like, I'm too scared or I'm too shy or I'm too awkward or I'm too weak or I'm not enough this or not enough that, right? And I'm just like super done with that kind of storyline. And I really try to catch myself when I'm going down that. A few months ago on this podcast, I actually shared one of my big personal goals right now is to lead climb a 512 outside. If you want to learn more about what lead climbing is, you can go to that episode and I talk a little bit more about there. But 512 is harder than I've ever climbed before. And for a really long time, I told myself stories like, that's not for me. I'm not strong enough. I probably can't do that. That's for stronger climbers. That's for younger climbers. That's for climbers who started earlier in life than me. That's for climbers who are more dedicated than me. Blah, 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 blah. I had like a lot of stories around why I would probably never climb 512 and especially outside. But deep down, like this desire came up for me. And I know that that desire wouldn't be there if I wasn't at least like a party, like if there wasn't at least a tiny part of me that believed that I could do it. So I decided instead of like consistently just resisting it to like literally make it my goal. I decided to go for it. And even though I have never climbed a 512 yet, so I have like no proof that it's possible, what has happened along the way since I have committed to that goal has been really incredible. I have made amazing climbing friendships, like friendships that I think that I'm going to have for life now. I've trained harder than ever and I feel stronger than ever. Like I was just looking at my muscles in the mirror the other day and I was like, I love this, like my arm muscles, and I'm just feeling strong and I love that feeling. I've dialed in my nutrition and my sleep better than I ever have. I have gotten to climb outdoors more than I have in years and years. Like I used to climb outdoors more, but like there's been this big gap. And this year I've like blown it out of the water again. I've made some really huge breakthroughs in my confidence lead climbing. Even lead climbing outside, like I'm taking falls and I'm less scared now. And I have more confidence in my movements and in my body and in myself to like make smart decisions on when to risk a fall and when not to risk it. Like, and I'm just like having so much fun. Like last weekend, I went outside with a friend and I led a 510B in a new area. And it was like a brand new climb I had never done before. And I remember just feeling like just having the time of my life. And every movement was so fun. It was just a super fun climb. I was on lead. I wasn't that scared. Like there were moments where I was like, ooh, it's a little airy, but like I really had so much more self-trust. And like, I have this like deep pride in how far I've come in my lead climbing because I used to be so terrified on the rock. So I was just able to fully enjoy this climb and it was just so fun. Of course, like pursuing this big goal has been hard and it's a lot of showing up and it's a lot of choosing the harder thing over the easier thing. Like there are days that I have 3-hour training sessions after work, after a long day of working, and it would be easier to just stay at home and watch Netflix, right? But pursuing this goal has like lit me up. It has made me feel really alive. It has made me feel more connected than ever to my friends and myself. And I've honestly just had a ton of fun in pursuing it. And like, I just can't imagine not pursuing it right now. And for me, I'm just so in this thing for the long run. Like I'm not in a hurry to pursue this goal. And that has also really like given me a lot of freedom. Like I already feel like it's inevitable and I just need to keep going. And like, I've looked back at this last 2 months of really believing that it could be possible and like, what do I need to do to like make it possible? And I have this strong commitment. So if I have experienced all these things in 2 months, like the things that I just mentioned above, imagine where if I keep this commitment for a year, like what that opens up for me, what experiences it takes me on, all the things. So much of my joy in pursuing this goal is coming from the journey to get there and not really even in the achievement of it. Cause I haven't really, like I led a 5:11 outside the other weekend, but like, you know, I still have a long ways to go before I'm feeling fully confident on leading a 5:12 outside. But I would have missed out on experiencing this joy that I'm having right now if I hadn't set this big, audacious, out of my league goal for myself, because I just wouldn't have tried as hard. Like I wouldn't have put myself into these certain opportunities to like grow and expand my capacity of doing more and being stronger. And I would have missed out on so much. So do not be afraid to challenge yourself to go for something big and outside of your comfort zone and something that you've never done before and something that maybe you in the past never really thought could be real for you. Like, don't be afraid to try. Like, there's so much joy to be found in the becoming and in the trying of the goal. And like, honestly, probably more joy is found in the becoming than actually in the achievement of the thing. So like, I'm sure one day I will climb that 5:12 outside and it will just be this quick moment, right? And if I was only living for that one moment, I would miss out on so much, right? So the reason to do this is so you can really tap into becoming the person who could and opening yourself up to even more stories that you can create and add to your adventure stories and your adventurous life and build and grow more and open up more possibilities for yourself. So that is the reason to do it. Okay. So to recap, my 3 guiding principles for living an adventurous life are 1, do it for the plot. So say yes to the story that stretches you. 2, embrace the plot twist and trust that the detours are part of your path. And 3, make sure to always be challenging yourself for your growth and for the long run, because growth is what keeps our life exciting, and just be in it for the long game, you guys. This is our life. Like it's a big story that we're building where it's a huge adventure, right? And our adventures are not about control. They're about trust. It's about believing you'll figure it out no matter what. And the more you practice that on the trail, the more you'll see it everywhere else in your life. And you are more capable than you think. And I just want to encourage you to go build that crazy, incredible, beautiful life story, life adventure, and have so much fun in the process of doing it. All right? Okay, my friends, that is it. We will talk next week. And thank you so much for being here. Bye. Hey, I wanted to thank you real quick for tuning into the show and listening all the way to the end. If you love this episode and you want deeper support in becoming a safe, confident, and self-sufficient hiker and backpacker, then head over to shedreamsofalpine.com/waitlist to learn more about our Backpacking Badass coaching program, where I teach you absolutely everything you need to know to be self-reliant on the trails and stop waiting around on others for the adventure invite. So I'd love to help you more in your journey of stepping into your adventurous identity, and that program is the absolute best place for us to start working together. So again, that's shedreamsofalpine.com/waitlist, and you can learn all about it there. So that's it for today, folks. I hope you get to spend some time outside this week, and I'll be back very soon with a brand new episode. Bye.